Lab here in Boulder. And Orit can't make it today. She has a health issue right now. So I'll be talking about the research that I'm doing in her lab, which spans quite a few areas, but is generally focused on studying fireflies, which is kind of a fun subject matter for a computer science research lab. So I'll get into that a little bit throughout the presentation. Um, but we're in the Peleg Lab, and so our PI, right, is Ori. She's an incredible PI, and I'm very fortunate to work for her. As you can see from her kind of like list of departments, she's spans the map of different kinds of applications. So while most of her research in the lab is focused on honeybee swarms and firefly communication, she's coming at it from a computer science perspective, an eBio perspective, a physics perspective, and an applied math perspective. So the people in the lab really kind of span all of these different paradigms of research, and we have quite a large group of people in the firefly communication group. That's me on the top there, and then I work with two postdocs, Chantal and Nick, and another student in the IQ Bio rotation, Nolan, who's in our lab as well. And that's the group of us that work on firefly communication within the Peleg Lab. And so today I'll be talking about kind of two families of projects that we have going on in the lab. These are in the firefly synchronization space and in the AI for firefly conservation space. Below here is a photo that I took this past summer while doing field work with the lab. So one of the kind of interesting perks and fun things about working in the Peleg Lab is that everyone in the lab has done a bunch of field work, is very hands-on, working with the organisms that we're studying. So here I'm out in Fort Collins in Colorado, photographing firefly species that live out there for a lot of the analysis that I'm doing, and I'll share later in the presentation. But these two subject areas kind of span, as I was saying, quite a wide range of fields. So in the synchronization space, we have everything from oscillator physics when looking at the dynamics of two individual fireflies interacting with each other, to network analysis and modeling, where we have groups of fireflies in particular places, and we're analyzing how their interactions are triggering cascade events and things like that. We use computer vision to analyze our footage from the field, agent-based modeling to model kind of theories and test them about firefly swarms. And we're really studying emergence in complex systems and the phenomenon of self-organization and how it might happen without a kind of centralized leader. But then also in the AI for firefly conservation space, we're working with neural networks and machine learning to classify species from the flash patterns of fireflies. And we're trying to move into the data center scale computing and mobile development space to deploy applications we're building at a large scale. And I'll talk more about these all as I get into the project specifics, but this is just to give you a sense of kind of the breadth of areas that we're working with here in the Peleg Lab. So the first project that I'll talk about is this interesting synchronization dynamics of firefly LED systems project that I've been working on for the past couple of years. So as you can see on the right, I go out into the field with a laptop connected to a Raspberry Pi that is programmed to flash in the same way that a firefly might flash. And I expose a single firefly to it inside of a tent. This little video here on the left is the LED on the right, and this little point here is a flashing firefly responding to that LED, occasionally synchronizing with the signal. And we have a wide range of these kind of LED frequencies that we're exposing the fireflies to, and a wide range of firefly responses to those signals. And what we're trying to do is understand how fireflies adapt their own pace of rhythm when exposed to a kind of driving stimulus. This is a very common problem in the kind of coupled oscillator physics literature. And we're working on it to understand kind of how fireflies respond to other stimuli that are like them. And so I've presented on this in APS, which is a physics conference in the past. And what we see is based on the driving LED period, we get a change in effect on the firefly's frequency or period of its own flash pattern, depending on the exposure to the period. So in the colors here, we have different LED periods going from 300 milliseconds between flashes to 1,000 milliseconds between flashes. And then the histograms are the response of the firefly when it's exposed to that period. And so you can kind of see based on where the solid line and the dotted line are, that the firefly is actually snapping to the frequency of the LED as it's exposed to it. So we're able to kind of manipulate a firefly's flash dynamics based on exposure to these different driving stimuli. And so that's kind of just one example of a project that we've been working on for a long time with within the space of the dynamics of firefly LED systems. We're kind of taking this a little bit further and making an agent-based model to describe these dynamics. So we imagine each agent in the system that we're simulating has some kind of voltage parameter, and we use something like an integrate and fire model like this form, where the voltage is based on the charging time of a firefly, the discharging time, which is how long its flash lasts, and some coupling parameter beta between the two fireflies as they interact with each other. If you have a firefly whose voltage is already high and it sees a flash, it's more likely to flash sooner. And a firefly whose voltage is low sees a flash, it's more likely to flash later. That's this kind of inhibition term over here. And so when we use this model, we can kind of fit that to the experimental data that we're seeing. And so we're able to validate our experimental data with models, agent-based models, and kind of have a nice feedback loop between the real system we're studying and the simulated system that we're analyzing with back home in the lab. So that's kind of one project that we sort of have been taken to its conclusion. But within the space of the same firefly species, there's another kind of family of projects that we're working on that there's quite a lot of open questions and kind of unknowns in this project. So I'll share this with you now. And that's the idea that we're examining near critical behavior in controlled density swarms of frontalis fireflies. So this is the same species that we're interacting with the LED, but instead of having LED present, now we're just going to capture a bunch of them, place them at particular places around a tent, and film them for a long time as they interact with each other. So this is a long exposure shot, again, from us in the field, demonstrating what the experimental setup looks like. We have, in this case, there's 20, but we can only see about 11 in this photo. And they're spread out around a tent so that they can't see anything else except for the other fireflies inside of the tent. And what we basically have created here is a controlled matrix of interacting nodes in a network where each one is able to kind of on-off signal and send that signal to all the other neighbors in the network. So if this one over here in the corner is flashing, any of the other ones that can see that flash are triggered by that model we were talking about before and might start flashing on their own in response to that. And so it's kind of an example of a system where we've artificially kind of set up a network to study to see how cascade effects might ripple through this network based on the dynamics. This is kind of an time series of what the experiment looked like. So on the vertical axis are all the different fireflies we have, and the horizontal axis is the time. And so you can see over the course of the experiment that all the fireflies are kind of activating and disactivating or deactivating at different times throughout the experiment. And these times might be really correlated to the activities of other fireflies. So some of them, like this group up here, are all kind of flashing near each other, maybe triggered by each other's events. And that might be the same case with the other individuals that are flashing near there. And throughout the course of the experiment, you can kind of see maybe like lots of these different kind of triggering events happening. And that's following the kind of framework that we were modeling and following the kind of framework that we've been trying to examine. We're hoping to look at more data like this to build a sort of sense of what the interaction network might look like in a firefly swarm. So these are kind of experiments that we're doing with regard to firefly synchronization, and there's quite a lot to do here. This is kind of brand new stuff that we've been examining recently, but in the lab, we get to go do the field work. We get to take this data, analyze it with computer vision. We get to then analyze the time series of the results to create figures like this, and kind of take the project all the way from nothing all the way to an analyzed result at the end, which is very different than a lot of modeling labs, which kind of end up taking other people's data and modeling it and sending the result back to them. We're in a nice position where we're able to take the data that we're gathering ourselves all the way through the pipeline, analyze it, look at the time series, make some modeling claim, and then move forward. But this is a pretty new experiment, so we don't have a lot of results here yet. Then I'll move a little bit to the AI for firefly conservation space, which is kind of the other area that our lab is working in. And one of the projects we're working on here is a really big kind of endeavor that leverages our filming capabilities to build a data set of firefly trajectories obtained by automated stereo calibration of 360-degree cameras. And what do I mean by this? So here in this figure, you can kind of see the setup that we use to do a lot of our data collection. We have two cameras. Both of them are 360-degree GoPro Maxes, like the same kind of camera you would use maybe when you're skiing to like film yourself doing some cool trick. You place these cameras out in the field at a known distance apart, and then they both have their own 360-degree view that you can kind of map into the rectangular space. And then doing stereo calibration of those two places, basically by triangulating on firefly flash points that occur in both of the frames at the same time, you're able to rebuild the trajectories of fireflies throughout the course of the night. So this figure D here is the density of firefly flashes around those two camera points, which are these two yellow spots here. And so you can kind of see that there's a whole entire circle of firefly behavior that we're capturing around the camera points throughout the night. That's basically to simulate the idea that we're filming from within a swarm of fireflies. And we can turn these points that we're detecting into trajectories via that calibration-free trajectorization from stereo. And we were able to build these kind of trajectories of moving fireflies through space. So these are individuals. We track their flashes, and then we concatenate flashes into streaks and streaks into trajectories based on how close together in space and time they might be occurring. So do this enough times at enough different locations, and we build a data set. And for any one instance of a species, the data might look like this. So this is one night of recording from a species called Photurus foresti, which is a very unique species that makes quite long and shapely flash trajectories when it moves. So here you can see the three-dimensional axes, and each one of these kind of streaks here is one individual firefly flashing during the points, and then we've kind of concatenated the streaks together with these lines here to show that the shape of those trajectories. But you can see it's doing some kind of S shapes, some kind of drops and rises, some little like L shapes, and all these very kind of unique behaviors. And we're capturing all of that with our 3D cameras and turning this into effectively a description of that firefly's movement patterns. And that goes into our data set. We have this kind of data from firefly populations all across the country. Actually, this past summer, we even added data points in Colorado to do an effort by me and some other people in the lab. But we have footage from all over the East Coast and some from Arizona. And what we're trying to do effectively is for every known firefly population in the country, we'd like to send these cameras to volunteers who then film the firefly population in that location and send us back the footage so we can construct these trajectories of firefly behavior and add them to our data set. And the goal of this data set, right, is to feed a classifier that's able to identify the species of the firefly from the flash pattern. So here's kind of the pipeline of what that looks like. We have our footage of the fireflies in the field. We turn that into this nice long trajectory of their flash pattern behavior. And then we actually turn that trajectory into a time series that says, here's what's going on over the course of the entire flash, like the entire time this individual is flashing. Here's all its on and off points. And for each species in our data set, it turns out that there are unique time signatures for the flash patterns of that species. And so, for example, this rare Bethaniensis species that's found only in Delaware on the Bethany Beach has a very kind of distinctive double flash pattern with various particular flash lengths, whereas the Photinus nulli species found in Arizona has a very particular triple flash pattern. And then some of the other species have these kind of longer, more rapid fire, but over the course of long time scales, like Frontalis and Carolinus. And so you can sort of see from the schematic that like each time series that we generate from this process might be distinctive to the species. And this actually has a biological background. So fireflies are emitting their flash patterns in the first place because they're trying to communicate with opposite sex members of their same species. So for Frontalis here, this particular flash pattern kind of like signature is actually really important for conveying species identity to females of the species. If they weren't able to flash in that particular way, the communication would be broken and there wouldn't be any successful reproduction for that season. So there's actually like a very biological basis for why these patterns are so particular. And we actually leverage this to try and identify the species from the pattern using neural networks. So I've built a recurrent neural network that takes these as input, these time series and the labels of the time series, and then outputs a classification. And we get pretty good accuracy on this sort of work. So we effectively say, given all the sequences we have in data set, let's split it up in a nice training test split, and classify the test set based on all the kind of instances of the flash patterns that we see in the training set. On the whole, we get good accuracy. And additionally, if we focus on just one population for any one of these species, we're actually able to get even higher accuracy when we kind of try to just identify the presence or absence of a species based on its one day of observations. And so we're really excited about the applications of this work in kind of a conservation basis for finding populations of species that might be endangered. And so kind of to summarize, we have these two sort of parallel projects going on that are both in the firefly space, but both doing very different things. And they both have kind of very near next step goals that I think any student who's interested in joining the lab could be very much could kind of take on as their own project moving forward. And so in the kind of network space, in the critical behavior space, we like to kind of turn the system that we have of just like, a lot of time series of individual fireflies into an embedding of fireflies in a network. And so we're thinking about something like this, where like each firefly might be a node in this network, and the connectivity of the network might be able to be inferred based on the cascade dynamics that we're seeing in the kind of overall system. So this is from kind of an older project that I've worked on in the past with a different species, but we have kind of the framework for developing this kind of embedding to inference pipeline. And so we'd like to kind of apply this to this very controlled system and sort of use this to move forward and understand how fireflies are interacting and synchronizing with each other. And then in the AI for conservation space, this is actually the kind of more, maybe more pressing need. We have the ability to do the classification that we're looking for, where we can say with high certainty that a time series belongs to a certain species. To be able to get more data and more coverage for this model, we're actually in the process of developing a mobile app called Flash Finder that lets users film fireflies from their phones, upload the videos to our model, which is going to live somewhere in the cloud, and then receive a classification result directly to their phones, like right away. And this is a very promising project for several reasons. One of them is that it enables kind of a wider net to be cast for the kind of creation of the data for our data set and for our models training. Two is that it is just a really nice way for kind of citizen scientists to contribute to observing species that might be endangered. They can film them, they can produce observations that we can then kind of correlate with a map of where they're located. But this needs a lot of work. Currently, the model is based on the trajectories of the videos and the time series they're in, and not on the videos themselves. So we're doing a bit of a conversion from time series to classifying from videos with CNNs. And so there's a bit of work that needs to be done there. Additionally, we also need some Android and iPhone kind of development chops to come to the lab and maybe help out building this application. And in addition to that, we were trying to kind of containerize and deploy the model to the cloud, which is something I've experienced with, but I need a helper. So I'd like to kind of figure out a way to get this model up in a place where it can be updated every time new data comes in at a regular cadence. Maybe it would be an API that interacts with both the data set and an API that interacts with the kind of end user to give them inference. So this is kind of more of an engineering, maybe like it's like the kind of research in this space is more about taking this project to a place that it can be widely applicable and deployed. And so there's a lot of software engineering and a lot of development that needs to happen here. And it's a pretty exciting space that I'm sort of running. And so there's some things you can do in the meantime. Like I know I'm not the professor, I'm not the kind of one who makes the decisions about any of this stuff. But if you want to join any of these projects that are going on, definitely read as much as you can. There's going to be research papers from our lab coming out. There's blogs about kind of using neural networks for this kind of classification task. There's software documentation both for our software and for kind of PyTorch's adjacent software that we're using, textbooks on the kind of synchronization modeling and network modeling stuff that we're doing. Anything that you can do to kind of brush up on the many topics that our lab kind of is covering would be really useful if you're interested in joining. But the kind of the bigger thing to do is to think really critically about what you want to do. I mean, if you're in this meeting, you're probably a someone who's thinking about doing a PhD student, or someone who's thinking about being a PhD student and doing a PhD, which is a long process that takes up a good chunk of your life, that really requires you to be passionate about what you're working on. And so you need to think about what kind of impact you want to have, and what kind of matters to you. And especially if you're interested in fireflies, these are just a few projects that we're doing in this space. It's a relatively small team working mostly on firefly behavior that we can record with our filmography methods. But there's a lot of things that are possible in the firefly space, and it's a really exciting kind of community to work within. Everyone that we've met across the country that works in fireflies has been really nice and is like excited about our work. And so we're kind of hoping to give back a lot to, conservation organizations and biodiversity organizations, while also learning kind of the underlying physics and mechanisms behind the synchronization of fireflies. So we're in this very unique space where we have the ability to answer lots of different kinds of questions. And so if you're interested in doing that kind of thing and kind of joining these projects or joining our lab, definitely apply to the PhD program. And also reach out to me or to Orit or to anyone else in our lab if contributing to these projects is interesting to you. And yeah, that's all I have. I'll just leave you with another photo that I took this summer from just down the road here in Boulder, of a population of fireflies at sunset. Just not mostly as a way to like kind of show you how beautiful and lucky I am to be able to work with these sorts of organisms, but also to kind of illustrate this beautiful problem of how fireflies have this different kind of behavior that you can classify. So you can see here, there's this species that's like flying up high with these long streaks, and this other species that's flying down low with these short flashes. And just you can sort of like get a sense of like what we're kind of working with here. And I don't know, that's all I have. And so thanks for listening. And I'm here for questions. I don't know if anyone else was there. Hello. Oh yeah, Karthik, what's up?
Hey Owen, yeah, this was all really interesting because I honestly did not know that there was so much research going on regarding firefly conservation. So that's really something amazing and something very niche, in my opinion. So I have a
Yeah.
question. When it comes to the different species of fireflies, like how do you handle that kind of diverse? Because there's lots of data coming for lots of species of the same organism, which are fireflies, right?
Mhm.
So like how do you handle like such huge amounts of data coming in? How do you process them? And yeah.
So effectively what we do is we ask our data collectors or as data collectors ourselves, we go to areas where we know a certain species of firefly is present, and we film the kind of behavior of that firefly species over the course of many nights, and we create a data set that's labeled by that species. If if we're in an area where we don't know what species is present, we also need to like kind of capture the species that's flying around and do a hands-on ID of that species to kind of understand like, oh, this pattern that we're seeing is due to this particular species. So every time we're adding to the data set, we're trying to do it in a labeled fashion where we know the kind of genetic or the phenotypic identity of the species in the swarm. And we also can match that to a flash pattern. And then we just create a big table of all of the time series objects that we generate over the course of a night and upload that to our data set. And so even though it's the same like organism, like there's a lot of species variations. I think there's over 200 species of fireflies in the US. And so you're kind of like relying on whoever's gathering the data to tell you what species you have. But that's kind of also the goal of this project in the future, is that once we have enough data to begin with, we won't need to have that person telling us anymore. We'll already have the species in the data set, and we can kind of like get data uploaded to us, classify it automatically, and then like use that to kind of continue moving forward. Does that answer your question?
Yes, yes, it does. Thank you. Thank you
Cool.
so much.
Yeah, and it's definitely very niche. I think we all kind of stumbled upon this because we were initially doing all the synchronization research and discovered that we had a really cool new method for filming fireflies in the first place. Like all the synchronization research required that. And so now we have both active streams of research going on where we're applying the methodology for filming fireflies in two very different ways.
Got it.
Are there other questions?
Thank you, Owen.
Yeah,
Appreciate your presentation. Very cool work you've got going on.
thanks.
Oh, it looks like Lauren is joining us.
Oh, yay.
We want to check in real quick.
Okay. Hello again. So I just wanted to ask a question to Audit. So I hope you recover fast. Or sorry that you're not feeling well. My question was how much would this research impact an actual firefly conservation, or how much has it already impacted? Because yeah, they might be endangered, and yeah, what big of a step are you guys taking towards firefly conservation, or you have already taken?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I'm not sure how much Owen went into the details, but I can say that we are in contact with several conservation organizations that specifically target fireflies. And one of the main difficulties in serving fireflies in the first place is that they only exist for a couple of weeks every year. So me and Owen and some other lab members, we try to record as many species as we can, but of course we cannot be everywhere all at once, during this really short period in which these fireflies are active. So that's where we think the crowdsourcing can really help. Owen I'm sure you mentioned that the crowdsourcing, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Cool.
I talked about how we have deployed crowdsourcing with our current camera setup, and then also how we're hoping to deploy it with the iPhones in the future, or with phones in the future.
Yeah, and then in terms of real, policy changes and real action for conservation, I think this is still ongoing conversation that we have with the conservation organizations, and hopefully with the data we have this year, we'll have more meat to talk to them about it. But it still we haven't implemented anything concrete yet.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll just add one thing to that as well, that the kind of primary use case for this sort of thing is to detect whether or not a species is present in a video or absent. And this is very important because there are certain species of fireflies that are quite endangered and only really are present in several small kind of disjointed population places around the country. And so if we can put cameras in those places pointed at the endangered species that are consistently telling us, yes, that species is here, yes, that species is here, oh wait, no, that species is gone, then we have a kind of indicator for when we need to maybe intervene or do something to help out in a way that could maybe protect these endangered species. I'm also going to answer Jonathan's question in the chat, which is what work has been done so far for the mobile application. I was writing a response, which I'll post in the chat, but I'll also mention out loud that we have kind of a very mocked up like demo front end in Flutter that lets you record a video and save it within the application and kind of stage it for sending to the the model in the future. We haven't done any of the work required to to kind of tie the model to that application yet. So we need to kind of figure out a way to host the model in a way where it can ingest from the data set every time there's a data set update. We need to be able to pull the model down and have it like the most recent checkpoint live locally on the phone to interact with the video for quick inference. So there's kind of a couple of like disjoint engineering tasks that all need to be done to kind of tie that all together. But for right now, we just have kind of a front end that does all the phone required video gathering components, and then we have a version of the model that interacts with the video. And that's all we have so far.
That is all for questions. I just want to take a moment to thank Owen and Orit for being here, and feel free to stay connected with them after this presentation. I hope you guys enjoyed. Very cool stuff we got going on. So thank you.
All credit goes to Owen. Owen, thank you so much for doing this today.
Thanks. Yeah, I know it's maybe a bit quick, but the lab website has tons of more details, and we're both available for any kind of questions if you have them. Good luck in whatever search process you're in, and thanks for listening.
Thank you. Have a good one.